Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's training on story selling. I am very excited to be bringing this to you today. Stories is one of my favorite topics. I have been studying the history, the psychology, the subconscious aspects of storytelling for well over a decade. I have a master's degree in film and I specialized in story and the role it plays in the evolution of society. So, your girl has some experience. So, before we kind of dive in, there's a couple things that I want to just preface. And whether you're joining this, whether you got in on the free access or you've got the paid access or you're watching this through the Story Codes program, I want you to recognize that your time is valuable. And my most important goal for you is to be really, really present during this. Take notes, let the lessons, the teachings, and the wisdom absorb within you so that you can go off and implement it. I have zero interest in creating a training that is going to leave you with the why and not the how. I want you to get the results, and I want you to be really present and focused through this because the money really is in the implementation of it. So first and foremost, stories are not meant to center yourself just for the sake of it, right? In the context of business, they serve a purpose of creating a mirror to validate your core message. So just think about it for a sec. What the message right now coming through to you is. Because you also don't just have one story, it's like a prism, but think of like your core message. You're going to have a story that has led you to that realization, that has led you to that message. And when we're able to bridge that gap or flip that mirror back to our audience, it is what allows them to then grasp the concept as well, right? There's this concept called neuro mirroring, and I remember studying this back in university if you think of historically, when people would go to, even like the Greeks, right? They would use theater and storytelling to educate people. And so they needed to create some type of thing that would flip the switch in their brain. And this is called neuro mirroring. And it happens all the time. Anytime we are telling a story, anytime we're listening to a story, our brain is scanning for the common point of interest. And so our brains are naturally doing it. However, as a business owner, you get to put yourself in the power seat as the CEO, as the empowered business owner to actually connect the dots for your people. Because if you think of the user experience of reading a book, listening to a podcast, reading a post, our brains aren't necessarily in analytical, right? We're just reading through something and we're only going to grasp like 10%. So the more you can be clear and explicit and connect the dots, the more you're going to create a better understanding for the person that you're trying to communicate with. So people will always forget details, facts, features, and benefits, but they'll always remember how something made them feel. And that's why when we hear a story and we go to tell the story again, most of the times we forget all of the details, but we remember how it made us feel. And so when we think in the context of business, stories shift beliefs because it paints a picture of the person's inner journey and that transformation. Literally as simple as that. So imagine you are telling Susie, who is struggling with her money mindset, that she just has to choose her thoughts. Like, who here has ever been told, you just have to choose your thoughts, as though it was that simple, right? My somatic people are like, right? But so Susie might roll her eyes and be like, yeah, I've tried that, or that doesn't work for me, or I don't know how to do that, right? So she's still in her belief. Now imagine you tell a story to Susie and you talk about how you were living in scarcity and how one day X experience happened and you awakened to your spiritual gifts. and you were able to tap into your higher purpose and let the money channel through you, realizing that you're a steward of that money and how you were able to access this abundance, right? That story is going to activate different aspects, elements, or energetics within the person listening, in their heart and their brain. And that's why stories, like facts tell and stories sell. Okay, we had a little sunlight situation happening there. It's like all of a sudden the sun was being like bounced off the mirror, and like literally I was like being blinded by the light. Now I have this light beam. Um, clearly, clearly I'm connected today. So I wanted to just riff a little bit around some thoughts on selling and sort of what like your deeper connection to your deeper why is. And I don't so much want to talk about, the feelings of ick around selling or, the manipulation. Like, we have to eliminate all of that. And I know that when we say, like, to use that previous example of like, imagine just telling Susie, like, oh, selling a service, right? It's not always that simple. And so sometimes we have to really deconstruct our own beliefs and looking at our own relationship to power, leadership, money, being seen in our greatness, being seen in our power, being paid for our gifts. And I have been in the online space for over 10 years. I've had this business for 11 years, and I have seen the constant bombarding of the messaging that's all about like make more money, find more clients. Like, it always comes down to these primal needs, right? Because if you think about it, making money is one of the most primal needs, but it's also on a spectrum because there's making money from a place of survival, but there's also making money from a place of abundance and luxury. And so you have to really look at like, what is your greater why for making money? So I might be very millennial in saying this, but for me, I love the work that I do. I love the women and the men that I serve. I love being able to help people tap into their expression, build a business in alignment with their own success signature, with their own nervous system. And yet, my business is not my life. I love my business, but my business is not my life. And when I was able to separate my identity and my business and who I serve, because they were so intertangled, it's like when I made a lot of sales, I was on that dopamine high. And when sales weren't coming through, I would feel so awful about myself and I would go on this roller coaster. And I really had to reconcile, like, what does it mean for me to make money and make sales? Like, what is my greater vision for my life? What is my lifestyle? How do I want to spend my time? And for me, there's no shame. Like, I've had to decondition the shame of like, yeah, I only work 20, 25 hours a week, and I get to have a six-figure business doing that. I don't have to sacrifice, but I choose devotion. And I choose the number of clients that I want to work with. I choose who I want to work with. And when I've been able to really make peace with that and have that clarity, it's changed my relationship with sales. And so I want to bring these questions back to you before we sort of dive into sales stories and all that jazz. So much of this story work is actually around identity. And that's why story templates fail, because it's very much the outward, like fill in these blanks, but it doesn't do the inward exploration. And that is what we're doing inside Story Codes. It's a very holistic program. You'll see as you're able to go through the modules, or if you haven't yet joined, you definitely want to be inside Story Codes, because what we're doing today is one piece of the puzzle, but there is such a deeper exploration of your soul work, your purpose work, your mission. And when you actually go through that evolution and can express that clarity, it's going to deepen your message and your story in ways way beyond what you thought was possible. And you're going to get past that surface level stuff. I see so many things online where it's like, here's the best hooks to catch someone's attention. And of course, there's a psychology behind certain storytelling hooks, but it's like, your life and your business is worth more than that. Like you have more to give to the world than just like quickly catching people's attention. You're here to do sustainable work, you're here to change people's lives. And so in order to really do that and build that sustainable business, you want to have a beautiful storytelling ecosystem and sales system within your business. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen because I am the queen of visuals and creating beautiful slides. StorySelling Stories Masterclass. So I did a little bit of an intro of myself when we started, but my name is Brittany. I'm an award-winning performer and filmmaker. I've built now 2 businesses to 6 figures and beyond. I have a double master's degree in film, psychology, and communication. I help spiritually aligned entrepreneurs elevate their voice, vision, and visibility so that they can amplify their most powerful expression while building a meaningful business and movement. So my promise to you, as I mentioned, is that this is a space where I'm going to be sharing the how. Like this is a paid program, so I'm not going to be just giving you the why and then letting you run off with it to figure it out on your own. We're going to be doing this here together today. So on the agenda, we're going to be talking about the 5 sales sparks that every story needs to move someone from feeling just inspired to actually ready to buy, that decision priming. The 3 beliefs that must be activated before someone buys, and how to craft the exact sales story for your next best-selling offer. And by the way, you guys, this is super meta because this is exactly what I've been doing with this program. This Story Codes is one of my best-selling signature programs. And what you're participating in today is one chapter of that program. So without further ado, let me see if I can put myself here. The 5 sales sparks to activate in your messaging. So this is going to be really simple, but here's the key. I want you to take notes, and in the same way that we rewire our neural pathways, we're just going to anchor these beliefs into our brain, because just like our reticular activating system, once we create the awareness, we'll start seeking it out. So I don't want you to have to consciously think hard. Okay, Brittany explained this, so how do I apply this? Just let it absorb into you and let your reticular activating system do it for you. So the next time you create a post, one of these 5 sales sparks is going to come into your mind. So the first one is the subconscious relevance. So this is similar to the neuro mirrors, what I was talking about, but it has to reflect that this is me. A story that mirrors your person's internal thoughts, patterns, fears, even before they consciously articulate them. Because most of the time, if not 90% of the time, it's subconscious, so they don't even know. I was working with a client recently who was like, I am so confident showing up. I know I have a strong message. And when it got down to it, we worked together for about 8 weeks, and slowly but surely, the visibility fears were coming up. Oh, I don't know if I really want people to perceive me this way, or I'm not sure I really want to share that through that lens. And so when we're able to, in our content, in our marketing and messaging, address what they're already thinking, feeling, right, even before they realize it, it creates that neuro mirror of this is about me. So this is the baseline. This is basic, right? It has to create a clear mirror. But I promise you, when I'm reading content, even if I'm just scanning, I can tell when someone is not actually clear on who they're speaking to. Now, this might just be because I'm a psychic projector in human design and can really read through the lines. Probably from studying acting all these years, we learn to read subtext, but I can see people's limiting beliefs and fears within their own content. So we just really want to make sure that we're doing this because not everyone is doing it. So subconscious relevance, making it clear that it's for them by mirroring back their own internal thoughts, patterns, fears, beliefs. The second sales spark is emotional activation. And this is where a lot of people are actually really good at storytelling. They do this naturally. They find a way to evoke an emotion or make someone feel something, right? And that's the thing. I feel something shift. So this is the story that activates the emotion before logic because their subconscious decides first. We need some kind of emotional anchor as to why this matters. And by the way, as we go through this, I'm going to be sharing examples later, but I want to just focus really on the teaching and the theory of it first. So, subconscious relevance, this is about me. Emotional activation, I feel something shift, right? And that can be any emotion. That could be fear, that could be pain, sadness, grief, nostalgia. Like we just want to make someone feel because emotion is what sets the motion. So when we feel something, it's only then that we have the leverage to move, to make a change, right? The third one is belief disruption. Now, I have an entire module inside Story Codes that talks about how to create belief shifting messaging. It's very, very specific. And once you've mastered it, it's almost like riding a bike. Once you understand how to do this mechanism, you'll start doing it naturally. And it really is the key to sales because people's biggest objection isn't money or time. That's what like basic boring sales trainers will teach you how to overcome the time objection, the sales object, the pricing objection. No, 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 no. People's biggest resistance is their own fear of change. It's their own ego. So the belief disruption spark is what I assumed might not be true. I believed this, now I believe this. And so this type of story element gently challenges the existing belief that's keeping them stuck and shows them the new way. Now, depending on your personality, you could be really spicy. Like you might see those like really bold truth speakers out there that kind of like to trigger the whole internet. I actually have a 5-line in human design, so I tend to just unfortunately naturally be triggering to people. But you might have a softer voice. Like you don't have to trigger people into change. There's also a very safe and soft way of helping someone see something differently. So you get to really tap into like what is your style of expression, both in a way that honors you, but also creates results, right? Like you get to see what works. The fourth sales spark is safety and trust encoding. I feel safe here. So this is the part of the story that signals either credibility, regulation, or integrity, which naturally is going to reduce the internal resistance or like threat, if you will, because anytime we feel like we're being sold to, we just put our guard up, right? Okay, so I came up with an example in the hormonal health industry or health and wellness industry. So an example of safety and trust encoding and like what that means in practice. So for example, in hormonal health, your audience is often dysregulated, burnt out, disappointed by past solutions, and suspicious of being promised XYZ. And so before they even think about buying, they're like, their subconscious thoughts are like, is this safe? Is this gonna make it worse? Is it actually gonna work? Is this gonna be something that just asks me to override my body intuition again? And so here's an example of a messaging without the safety and encoding. I fixed my hormones in 90 days by cutting out sugar, waking up at 5 a.m., and following this exact protocol. If you're committed, you can too. Oh, God, eye roll, right? So what this triggers subconsciously for your audience is pressure, comparison, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do that? And a threat to their nervous system. Even if the information is solid and exudes confidence and has that credibility, it's like the body still says no. So here's an example of how you would flip that and bring in the safety and trust encoding. we're doing this in a story format, right? So for a long time, I thought my hormones weren't improving because I wasn't disciplined enough. I tried stricter protocols, more supplements, more control, and my body pushed back even harder. Sidebar, notice how specific, like the specific examples there are there. Okay, close sidebar. What changed wasn't my effort, it was how I listened. I stopped forcing my body to comply and I started working with it. That's when regulation began, not overnight, but sustainably. And so not only is this story specific, right? It goes back to the infamous, I call it infamous. I just always use this example, like, telling Susie to just like change her money beliefs. It's like you can't just tell someone what it is they need to believe. You need to share a story that shows that inner journey, because the person listening or reading will identify the neural mirrors of like, oh yes, that's me. Oh yes, I've tried that. Oh yes, they see me, they get me. Boom, created safety. They're already sold on it, right? So what this encodes subconsciously is I won't be punished here. My experience isn't going to be pathologized. This person understands the complexity of my situation, and I don't have to override my body to heal. That is the safety. So I wanted to just share that example because I know that is something that would come up. The last sales spark is drumroll, decision priming, and I have a lot to say on this. So decision priming is saying yes feels natural. Like in sales, when you do a good job with your marketing, okay, when it's effective, the yes is just the natural next step. And so this is a type of story that prepares their nervous system or their mind, whatever, for action so that it feels aligned and not forced. When you get into the space of someone not feeling safe or ready or XYZ objection, it's like you haven't primed their decision yet. Like they have not decided that they want this thing, and that's why people will default to like, oh, I don't have time or I don't have the money, because those are the easiest I don't want to say excuses, but those are the easiest reasons that we can like scapegoat, because it's like, oh, if I don't have the money, then like, you can't push back on me, So decision priming, your audience isn't really asking like, is this good enough? Is this person smart? Are they qualified? Blah, 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 blah. What they're actually asking is, am I allowed to want this? Is it safe to prioritize myself? What if I try and I still fail? Like, what if I pay this person, I do everything they say, and it still doesn't work? What will they say? What will this say about me? Who will I become? How will I change? When you can create content around your person's subconscious programming and address their inner world, you have done the sales job. Like this is, I can't tell you how many times people come to me and they're like, I was reading your content and I felt like you were speaking exactly to my soul. Like you knew exactly what I was thinking, what I was going through. And I trust that working with you is going to bring me to that next evolution, that next step, that whatever end result, right? Because you're able to like paint that picture so clearly. When we see messaging that's like, live your best life or just heal your nervous system, like these very vague promises, it's like it doesn't create the neural mirror in someone's mind. It doesn't create the sense of trust. It doesn't just prime them for the decision, right? And so we really, really miss the boat on that. And that is why you're here today, to master these skills and weave them into your marketing and messaging, because it's really like you're just going to simplify your entire business ecosystem. So I love to share examples. Storytelling without the sales psychology, right? If you think of what I titled this class today, it was like storytelling versus story selling, right? So a lot of us do storytelling and we're just evoking emotion, but we're missing the sales psychology. So story selling is obviously what we're diving into today. But when you share a story, and like you share a healing moment, a breakthrough, a transformation, something that shifted. Your audience thinks, "Oh, that's so amazing. I'm so proud of you," or "I love that." I get these comments. "I love that. I wish I could do that." And then it stops there. Why? Because the story stopped at inspiration and it did not use the subconscious signals, the sales sparks to bridge that gap into the movement. So the next time you go and share a story, like share your story, but add one of these subconscious sales signals, like what we've discussed here. Subconscious relevance, emotional activation, belief disruption, safety and trust encoding, or decision priming. Even if you just bring one of those into your next story, it will make a difference. So here's some sort of prompts, if you will, just to help your mind think. The moment you decided to try anyway, the fear you had before investing, the part of you that thought this might not work for me, the quiet realization that waiting was its own cost. The quiet realization that waiting was its own cost. And, obviously depending on what the story is, but just like bridge that gap for them. Because then your audience is going to think, oh, yes, this is exactly where I am. I can see myself making that decision. I had a client from Story Code, she might be watching this, message me yesterday and she was like, "I just love following your journey. It inspires me so much, like seeing you living in Europe, running your business, living this abundant, luxurious life. Like I really want that for myself. You're just so inspiring." And I was like, "Oh, I love that." And then I thought, oh my gosh, this is an invitation for me to really take it up a notch myself, because I don't tend to sell like my lifestyle or business per se, but it gave me this invitation of like, yeah, I don't want people to just feel inspired by my lifestyle. Let me actually break it down for them. And I have to say that storytelling is something that has really like catapulted my business and my sales, because I've really mastered the art of communication, the art of connecting with people, the art of sales. And that is what allows me to live this amazing life in Paris, France, right? And so it was so beautiful to get that feedback, because it was an invitation for me of like, oh yes, let me connect those dots even further. Like even when you think you've connected the dots, take it one step further. So here are some specific prompts across a couple of different industries, because I know we're all coming from different places. I know I love examples to spark off ideas in my mind. So in the business growth entrepreneur space, your person could be thinking, what if I invest and still don't follow through? This isn't about the offer. It's actually about their identity, self-trust, and fear of repeating past patterns. How many of us have thought, let me just invest in this high ticket thing and then I'll have to do the work. I'll have to show up for myself. It's not always enough. Because really what's happening beneath it, it goes back to what I said, the cycle of hope. The biggest objection isn't money or time. It's actually the fear of change. They're afraid. I mean, this could apply even in the health and wellness industry, anything where we're like, yeah, but I've tried that before and I'm just going to repeat the same patterns. I'm going to let myself down again. Right. And so sharing a story that primes, so in the context of this entrepreneurship, like a story that primes, sorry, I cannot speak, that shows the messy implementation, not just the results. And I also think that more and more people are becoming transparent about this, because it's beautiful to have the like the accolades and the highlight reel, but where people need help is bridging the gap. It's the in between, it's the process. And when you recognize that your person, like people think that they fear failure more than they fear success. But it's the opposite. People actually fear success more than failure, because they fear who they're going to become and what they're going to lose and when they become successful. So start thinking about that if you're in the business growth or personal growth space of how can I help them feel safe in that identity shift? Because that's actually what's going on. Because it's easier to stay stuck in the pain. It's kind of like the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. It's easier to stay in the pain than the pain of the growth and the unknown. That was a great example. So health, wellness, nervous system, hormones, just kind of like regroup this together. Uh, Similar to what I shared in the previous example, but what if my body doesn't respond the way it's supposed to? So your person, your potential client would have the fear that they're the exception, that they're the broken one, that this is not going to work for them. And so you can share stories that prime this and remove blame while normalizing the non-linear progress, because that's really what it is that they need to hear. If they have a subconscious belief that like almost like they're so special that like nothing will work for them, then that's the deeper story that you want to share to help bridge that gap and lead them into why your offer is the solution. In the relationships, intimacy, sex coaching kind of area, your person could be thinking, actually, this would very much be subconscious, but what if I change and it costs me connection? So the deeper fear is fear of outgrowing a partner, disrupting dynamics, or being too much. You think in relationships that I've heard these stories before where someone goes away to a personal growth conference, or I heard this story of someone, their partner did ayahuasca and came back home and broke up with them. like, and so it's it would be the fear of change. So a story that primes that you can create that emotional or like relational safety, and that expansion is safe, because they need to believe that the expansion is safe in order for them to say yes to the offer. Let's look at one last example in the sort of healing, inner child, trauma, emotional healing space. So your person might be thinking, again, I've just completely made up these examples, but there's so many more examples and places you could take this. So what if opening up this door is more than I can handle? Like, what if it's Pandora's box? Like, what if I don't want to go back and heal that thing, right? And for this person, their inner resistance or objection is the fear of emotional overwhelm, of capacity, of losing control. And so you can share stories that emphasize growing at your own pace, like healing, building your capacity incrementally. So like, we're not really talking about quantum leaps I know quantum leaps is such like a collapse time and 10x your results. Like, okay, that's cool for business. But when it comes to healing, which you can also quantum leap in healing, but for the sake of this example, it's like showing them that they can have the growth and transformation incrementally, that they're going to feel safe every step of the way. Because I can even think of myself in examples where I've collapsed time really fast, and it's like I've become a new person, and my subconscious is like terrified. It's like the big leap. So you just go back to like, it's like your upper limit, right? You go back to like the way you were before. And so in this type of messaging, you really want to bridge that gap around pacing, choice, consent, and inner safety. So the 3 beliefs your messaging must reinforce to sell your offers. Now, when I've taught this in the past, people will say to me, Brittany, this is so simple. This is so like, duh, of course. But let me tell you, it is in the implementation, and your business messaging, it's like an ecosystem, right? So it's like you want to be weaving all of these, like these 3 beliefs I mean, everything we're talking about today, right? It's not a one and done. I want you to start weaving this into your messaging and marketing overall. So the 3 beliefs that your messaging must reinforce to sell your offers. This is a non-negotiable. If you're not doing this, you got to start looking at your offers and your messaging and doing mini audits, because that's why it's something that's almost so basic, but it's so basic that people don't do it. They miss the step. So the first one is your person, your ideal client, your dream client. They have to believe that you are the right person to help them. They have to feel some type of personal connection or trust with you. And you do this through embodiment content. Embodiment content is when you show up as the walking, living proof of what you stand for, of the transformation you provide. And this can be fun, it can be playful, it can be light, polarizing. Like, you get to show all the different sides of you. I have a lot of sass to me, and if I didn't show that sass, then people might show up in my containers and be like, who is this biatch? Right? Like, you have to bring all of the elements of your personality. I also have a very gentle and healing side, right? I also express that in different ways. I also, in my messaging, like, let clients know that I will adapt. Like, if I feel like someone has a little bit more mental strength, then I might bring in that sass. But if I know if a client is going through a harder time, I'm not going to bring them the sass. I'm going to bring them the sweetness, right? And so it's even just expressing that's who I am, that someone's going to be like, oh, yes, she's the right person to help me. So you need to create different pieces of content that showcase just who you are, what you stand for, what you believe in, what your philosophy is, right? These don't even have to be standalone sales posts. They're just posts that let people get to know you. The second one is they need to believe in themselves. And this can be a little bit of a harder one, because they have their own life experience, they have their own beliefs, they have stories attached to those beliefs. They have their self-image, they have their paradigm, they have their own level of risk adverse, and they have their own level of self-trust. And so you want to be creating messaging that reinforces. So this is where, like, their belief system, like belief shifting messaging or belief disruptive messaging, is going to help them with that. Around self-image and paradigm, you want to help future cast. You want to help bridge that safety of, like, you get to be this new person. You get to experience this change, and your life is not going to crumble. Your marriage isn't going to dissolve. Bridging that gap of, like, they have to believe in themselves. They have to believe it's possible for themselves, and your messaging can fill that gap. Even around, like, a level of self-trust. I know this is, like, a very common example, but someone who's maybe afraid to invest in themselves because they maybe don't feel like they're worth that. Sharing a story. I mean, I think we all have some story where we took that big leap and decided to invest big in ourselves and, work with someone that was going to take us to that next level in any industry, right? I'm not just talking about coaching here. So they have to believe in themselves. And that's actually one of the hardest beliefs to overcome in your messaging, because that's where the biggest resistance shows up. And the more you can be a strong, clear storyteller and communicator, the more you're going to bridge these gaps. And you're actually, like, you're going to take them from that inspiration to the moving, the shaking, the action. The third belief is they have to actually believe in your solution. So, does your signature methodology actually match their needs? What is your unique way of doing something? How does your process fill the gap? I remember a couple years ago, I was dealing with extreme anxiety, and I was working with an anxiety coach that was very much focused in the mental, in mindfulness, but it wasn't addressing the somatic and childhood trauma aspect. And so it didn't matter that I was doing the meditation and the mindfulness practices, because the method wasn't actually matching my needs. And so this is where, the more you know your dream client and what it is that they need, because there's solutions for everything, there's methods for everything, and nothing is ever wrong. It's just, we just want to make sure it's the right match. What was interesting is that I had later shifted and started working with a somatic practitioner, and that was actually the method that got me to the root of my anxiety. It doesn't mean that the other person's method was wrong. It just wasn't right for me, but it would have been right for other people who had different root issues. So can you kind of look at, like, no matter what industry you're in, what is the root cause of their pain or their struggle, and how your solution matches it? And of course, I've got prompts for you because I want you to actually, implement this, right? So here's the thing with prompts. I have often given templates, and I find that when I do, my clients who are very much like free thinkers, untamed, they get really stuck. Like, they're like, I can't deal with the structure because then I feel like I have to process my thoughts through the structure. Maybe you are someone who likes the structure, in which case in Story Coach, there definitely are different resources, different, like, I actually break down step by step. So you will get some of that in Story Codes, but for what we're doing today, I'm just giving you these kind of open-ended prompts. So to go back to this, so the 3 beliefs your messaging must reinforce to sell your offers. So you might, like, intellectually be like, yeah, I get this. Okay, I have to reinforce the beliefs about why I'm the right person, their own inner belief system, and why my solution is the right method for them, right? Or why my offer is going to fill the gap. So I know the next question is like, okay, but how do you put that into practice? So here are a couple of prompts. So how do you address the you, why you're the one? So tell a story that shows how you live, decide, or lead differently because of the work you teach, especially in a moment where you would easily default to an old pattern. So for example, what belief about success, healing, or transformation sets me apart from others in my industry? That is your prompt. This is going to reinforce, if we go back to the sales sparks, the subconscious relevance, belief disruption, safety and coding, and the emotion. So you can screen cap this, you can take note, but really think about a story of how you are the embodiment of what you teach. For them, how to shift the them belief, believing in themselves. Tell a story that removes blame from the client and names the belief, the conditioning, or the pattern that is shaping their experience. Then show them the moment that belief is going to crack open. So it's not that you're blank, it's that you've been da-da-da-da. Here's what changes when that belief shifts. So for example, if I were to put this in the example I just shared, it's not that mindfulness practices don't work for you, it's that you've had unhealed childhood trauma. Here's what changes when you're able to bring in somatic practices. Boom. Like, it really explains what that difference is. This reinforces subconscious relevance, belief disruption, safety and coding, and emotion. Now, the solution-oriented belief, so it's a little bit similar, but tell a story that reframes what people think their problem is versus what the problem actually is and how your methodology fills that gap. I think the example I just shared was more relevant to this, but roll with it, you guys. So the issue isn't ABC, the issue is actually XYZ. My offer fills the gap by ABC. Now, you don't have to use these like formatted like robotic sentences, but at least to help like have that cognitive clarity of like, well, they think it's this and this is actually what it is, and this is why my program's going to help them, right? Because we want to shift that belief that your offer is the solution to their problem. It is the prayer or the answer to their prayer, right? All right. How are we feeling with everything? Should we take a breath? Let that simmer for a sec. So, as I always say, the money is in the implementation. You don't just become a better storyteller by watching a class, unless you're extremely self-led. You need the hands-on support. You need the creative guidance, and you need to be able to refine and extract the gems. I had written this post a couple months ago, and it says, I can leave you a 5-minute voice note with specific story feedback that you never apply, or you can work with me and get support to actually implement and see fast results. Now, I'm in a stage in my business and at a level of consciousness that when I want something, I invest in it. Like when I desire growth, when I want the thing, I just buy it. I don't let money hold me back. But I also have that level of financial freedom in my business. But if I didn't, I would still find the money because it comes down to like what is important to you. Most people aren't stuck because they don't know what to say. They get stuck because they're too much thinking in their brain and they're not enough in the doing. And I see this all the time when I'm working privately with clients or in my story mastermind. It's like they get so caught up on like, what do I say? How do I say this? And my thing is like, you just need to like, it's like you need to paint 10 canvases until you actually master the result. But if you don't paint the 10 canvases, right? You don't write the 10 bad story posts, then you're never going to experience that mastery and the result that comes with it, which is filling out your offers, right? So I have been there myself. Like someone gives you feedback and you're like, okay, cool. Like, how do I actually, execute this strategically? And that's exactly why I created story codes. It says the Story Alchemy Mastermind there, but it was meant to be story codes. I want to invite you to Story Codes, my signature digital program, turn your lived experience into stories that sell. Now, this is like a full holistic, everything from like the inner alchemy work, purpose work, 3D to 5D messaging, different story frameworks for embodiment, sales, speaking, brand story, like it's all the things, story, inner work, and messaging. But the cool thing is that we have some insane bonuses for this round. I first launched this program this summer and it was an amazing kickoff. Like I had so much fun with the women in the program and I wanted to even like up the game this year. Like what are some really juicy bonuses? So the first bonus, it is January 21st, by the way. So we're kicking this off in February. The first bonus, the first 3 signups will get a personalized story review from me, valued at $222. The first 10 signups are going to receive a live Q&A mastermind call, which will be in February. And this is very much like hands-on. It's limited to 10 people so that everyone is going to get personalized feedback. I'm very much like, I love to get deep in it with you and help you find the exact story codes, the exact messaging, the exact, details to bring into the light. And I decided to add a 5-day live quantum story vortex. And it's going to be 5 days inside Telegram. We're going to have riffs, prompts, personalized feedback. So the value is 333. So already like with these bonuses, which are they're just free bonuses for the sake of it, you're already at over $500. The investment for story codes is $247 or 2 payments of $150. And this also includes access to all future modules. So the way that this program is structured is that I'm always running new live rounds every quarter. And every quarter there's a new focus, there's new bonuses, and you get to participate in the live calls. And there also is a VIP upgrade. So for anyone who wants that extra support, you can upgrade to the VIP and have a private intensive, 90-minute private intensive, and a 10-day Telegram support. to kind of go back and forth, implement, work through, coaching, strategic, story angles, messaging, all the things. So who this is for? I mean, obviously for entrepreneurs who are in the, personal growth space, spirituality, health, wellness, content creators, practitioners, facilitators, coaches, mentors, all the things, right? But you're going to be a really good fit for this if you are already naturally expressive, you love growth, and you love to be supported. You are someone who is result oriented, so you are here to learn and implement and experience those results. You can have some fears, you can have, some little bit of resistance, but ultimately you're here to impact the world. And this goes back to how I opened this initial class, which was, we're not just wanting to make more sales to pad our bank account. What is your greater why? Who is it? What is the impact? What is your unique contribution to the world? Right? Really tapping into like what fuels you beyond just having money in your bank account, right? So you have a vision, you have people that you want to serve. This is also going to be a good fit if you already have a business. Now, if you're brand new in business, there's also some beautiful modules that talk about purpose work, soul work, healing. So it's also going to be a really good launch pad for you. And this is also really good if you're reflective and naturally self-guiding, because even though there are some live components, there are modules that you will be able to watch them, listen, dive in, and then have to implement it yourself. Questions that my clients ask me. So the thing about story codes is I'm not just giving you a bunch of templates, like here's how to write your brand story, here's how to make your signature talk, here's how to, X, Y, Z, whatever. Anytime I'm working with clients, this is like, it's rarely the form and the structure. That always comes last. The questions that my clients are asking me is, how do I know which stories to share and which ones to leave private? How do I make sure that my story resonates with my audience and not just me? Like, how do I make it relevant to them? What do I do if I have evolved and I'm like a different version of myself today? Like my old story I was telling is not who I am, and I want to bring in a new audience, new clients. How do I build a business and a brand that, creates trust, but I'm not feeling like I have to overshare my story all the time or overshare my pain? These are all questions that are addressed within story codes because it is a extremely holistic program. I'm actually going to show you, I don't think I have it on. This is the offer page. So it's broken down into like 3 core modules. So the first one is high level storytelling. So sales story frameworks that shift beliefs, drive sales. Soul stories that build connection, identity shift, embodiment. Story versus story-driven messaging, the difference between sharing personal stories and story anecdotes as a tool for connection. There's also the cinematic embody story reels for Instagram, which is like one of the best trainings ever. And I have an example you can click on to my Instagram. Then we have messaging that moves. So we've talked a lot about this today, but the actual trainings that go in depth in story codes are neuro mirror messaging. So how to tap into the subconscious and create a mirror effect in your audience's mind. Belief shifting messaging. So using my subconscious story arcs method, bridge the gap between what your audience believes now and what they need to believe to say yes to your offer. My spiritual babes will love this. 3D to 5D resonance messaging, speaking the language that lands at your client's level of consciousness, whether they're in survival mode, problem aware, or ready to step into full expansion. And then the third is the inner alchemy. So this is the purpose and power, the weaving in the golden thread of your life's purpose, your calling, the foundation for your story. Prism method, so identifying the multi-dimensionality of your wisdom and how to share the same story, but through various angles. And then this is a big one, you guys, evolution, how to navigate outgrowing your story, those identity integrations, and dissolving the voices of self-censorship, fear of judgment, all the things, the leadership, the visibility fears. So I invite you to join Story Codes. The live bonuses are kicking off, are going to be valid in February when we do the live call in the Quantum Story Vortex. And I will say these 10 spaces will go fast, and it's only available to the first 10 people. Really, what you're getting is a beautiful, comprehensive story program. And the advantage by joining now is that you're going to get these bonuses and personalized guidance from me. So, really, it's at such a no-brainer price. And I hope to see you in there. All right. And last but not least, how to craft the exact sales story for your next best-selling offer. And this is, like I said, very meta because Story Codes is one of my best-selling offers. And I've basically taken everything. I basically use an example of how I was selling this program to teach it to you today. So in general, the best stories to sell your offer are going to be embodiment type stories, identity shift stories. These are the stories that get so much engagement on my social media. I mean, really, I don't want to say value or educational is dead, but y'all, stories are just, it's the way to people's heart. It's the way to people's heart. It's the way to people's wallets because it just shows them what is possible. And they're like, yes, I want this. So the other type is client transformation stories, and then belief or perspective shifting stories. So I'm not going to kind of dive into all of them today. I have the specific modules in Story Codes that are going to break them down individually. But for today, we're gonna share one, which is super fun because I actually wrote this. Oh my God, this chair is so squeaky. I wrote this actually like 2 days ago, and I didn't even like realize that I was doing it. But that's the point I'm trying to make, is that I don't sit down and be like, oh, what did I learn in this masterclass and how do I apply it? Like, I just live and breathe it. I just do it because it's like my brain thinks this way. And that is my goal for you, my friends. So I wrote this, or actually it was a video reel. So it says, 2 years ago, I was in a mastermind with my mentor, shout out Katie Stewart. I was talking about the importance of story, depth, connection, and she kept bringing it back to this question. Okay, Brittany, but how does that bridge to sales? And honestly, I was so resistant. As someone who had studied film and theater and performance at a high level, I was like, no, that's not what story is about. Story to me was art, expression, and truth. And it felt like sales just cheapened it. But that same year, with her support, I crafted one of my best-selling one-to-one offers called Signature Story. This was in January 2024, by the way. And truly, Signature Story is my one-to-one story mentorship that just sells all the time. Like, it's just my number one offer. So fast forward to recently, I'm leading my own story mastermind, listening to one of the women talk through her messaging, and I hear myself say something out loud that stopped me in my tracks. This happened last week, by the way, you guys. I was like, we're always selling something. Anytime we tell a story, we are selling an idea, a perspective, a belief. We're trying to create connection. We're looking for resonance, and we want someone to see the world the way we see it, even just for a moment. So to be a good salesperson, you actually have to be a good storyteller. And to be a good storyteller, you're actually already selling. That realization forced me to look at my own resistance, at the beliefs I've been carrying about sales, even while teaching on story. My coach had challenged me on this belief years ago, and she was right. Now I'm finally in a place where I can stand behind my offers fully, promote them the way they deserve, and let my stories do the job they were always meant to do, which is connect, shift beliefs, and invite the people forward to work with me. Not because story became sales, but because I stopped pretending that they were separate. So that's the story aspect. Now I lead into the call to action. So that's why you can share a powerful story that stirs someone's soul and then nothing happens. Not because the storytelling didn't work, but because you're missing the sales psychology. Blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, my storytelling masterclass drops this Wednesday. Here's what we're covering, blah, blah, blah. So I won't read it, but because obviously you're here today living the experience. But if you can see the purple writing, I really just broke this down. And again, you can screen cap this and you can study this. Like you can even screen cap this, put it in your chat GPT, write a story, and it will structure it for you. Okay, so I first started by a story that was like quite emotional. I actually got a lot of engagement on this post. Why? Because I was selling something without people realizing that I was selling something. I was selling an idea. So I evoked the problem, I named the resistance, I stated the limiting belief, I stated the embodied change and the embodied wisdom as a result. I stated the result of the belief shift. And then I brought it to a big picture, like the long-term results. And then in my pitch, I don't know why I air quoted that. In my pitch, I exposed the perceived problem, right here. I stated the solution. I introed to the offer, and then I shared some of the details. So this is so powerful because, and this is why I'm like, I didn't even realize I did this, which is why, not to like toot my own horn, but I'm really good at what I do. So I did these things, the subconscious relevance, emotional activation, because I brought up a memory, right? I brought the belief disruption, like I believed this, and changing this belief is what brought me this result. I brought in the safety and the trust, like this is why I'm the right person, the integrity. I reduced the resistance because I started with a story so people didn't know that I was going to lead to the sale. And then the decision priming, right? So I made it very clear why this is the next right step. And this is really cute because my mentor actually shared it on her stories and she wrote, sales are an act of service. And if we as women aren't fixing each other's crowns, what are we even doing? And this actually was at a retreat in Provence this summer where I got to go and participate in her retreat, but also do the cinematic videography and photography. So I loved like the full circle and the emotions and the like, it just really painted a picture of like, this is what I stand for, this is what I believe, like community, women, service, all the things. So for you, I've just come up with a couple of sales story prompts. Maybe the example I shared brought something up for you, but if not, we'll just kind of walk through these prompts. So open up your sales slides. So that could be stories, a post, a carousel, whatever, by sharing your story of how you created a result and did things differently. Move into why this works and how you have bottled it up to be a super results-driven offer. Follow up with a pitch. So this is very much a personal transformation story. I mean, I think the example I shared was really a great example of how I did that. The second prompt is share client results and talk about why this program is set up to help drive those results, and follow it with an invitation or a pitch into your program. Client testimonial or results stories are really, really effective. And actually in Story Codes, there is a module that breaks down exactly how to interview your clients, ask the right questions, get them to share testimonials that actually share the transformation beyond just like, so-and-so so amazing, or loved my time, or life is so amazing now, right? We get these very vague testimonials that don't actually illustrate the transformation. And that is so key for us in being able to sell our program with more ease. The third prompt is create a set of sales slides where you share a bit about your journey to the result, and then really create like a future casting for them. So this is where you're going to be tapping into identity. How are they going to feel? What's going to shift? Like really paint a picture of like what their life could be like. And again, remember, they might have that internal resistance of that's not possible for me. You want to bridge that gap, show them why it's possible, and then end it with a pitch or an invitation to work with you. So, without further ado, this has been your story selling masterclass, and I'm so excited to see you guys out there and implementing this, cheering you on. So, please reach out to me if you have questions about this masterclass, if you have questions about story codes, working with me privately, even if you just want to connect, come say hello over on Instagram. And with that being said, I wish you a beautiful day and an abundant business. All right. Bisous from Paris. Ciao.